You found the Live Local Marketing Podcast, where business owners share their knowledge about what's working in the market today. No fluff, just their experiences and stories from people who are making it happen. And if authentic, practical marketing resonates with you, be sure to visit livelocalwarmmarketing.com and learn to grow your business on warm marketing referrals. Now, on to the show. Today, we've got Tim Barry. Tim started his first business when he was 14 and he never looked back. His passion for helping small businesses scale through effective leadership, sales, training, executive coaching has been yielded dozens of awards over the 42 years. You don't look old enough to be 42 years, but Tim brings together both sides of sales and leadership, the science of selling using bulletproof processes, and the art of applying it conversationally. And again, quick format review, and then we're going to get right to Tim. We have 2 minutes for each of the questions. We're going to get all the experience and knowledge out of his brain. And at the very end, he's going to talk about his business and then how to get a hold of him. Tim, are you ready, sir?
Oh, you froze. I am, Billy. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right, so we're going to get right to it. My favorite question. As an entrepreneur, especially with such experience as you, what was your first win?
That one's easy. When I was 14 years old, I started a business doing residential cleaning for rich people in the rich side of town. And we got about 3 or 4 months in, and one of the owners of the home was a guy that owned a 5-story office building. And he invited me to bid on his cleaning that 5-story office building. Now, mind you, I'm 14 years old, so how the heck am I going to get to an office building? Well, I started dating a 16-year-old who had a driver's license, and I convinced the guy to let me match his current vendor. And we ended up, like 9 of us would go over there 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and clean this building up. And so that was the first real big win. He was curious because when I was 14, I looked like I was about 7. And he was like, couldn't you handle this? And I was like, well, yeah, I can handle it. And he said, so what would you charge me? And my response was, what is your current vendor charging you? And he's like, well, if I tell you that, you're going to say the same thing. And I'm like, well, look, I'm 14. I don't know any different. Throw me a bone. And he did. And so I undercut the existing vendor by, I think it was $50, and we ended up with the contract. So that was my first monster win. It ended up going from just me to probably 20 people.
All right, so a random part of that story. So the 16-year-old, is this like a kind of story where like you moved on and now you're married to that person, or is it like 16 and then eventually it didn't work out?
No, I can't say I'm proud, but it didn't go much beyond that 6-month window. And then she got sick of me, and I had already figured out that I had employed several other people that were 16. So at that point, I was on my own.
Nice. All right. Well, I gotta ask. I was kind of curious at that point. So as we move into the next one, so with all these years experience, what would you consider your best habit?
Best habit is that I'm hyper disciplined and focused in my prospecting. And the most important part for that is that I've got to calendar block the execution of the behaviors. So cold calling and managing relationships on LinkedIn and doing email outreach and networking, those are all important pieces. And most business owners get really busy in the business as opposed to working on the business. Well, for me, it's about the growth of the revenue side. So I spend 60% of the time of on the white space on my calendar hunting, and I calendar block it, and then I defend that calendar like I'm defending my own life. So no one gets to interrupt me under any circumstances. I don't care if the building's burning down while I'm in it. Call the fire department. I am going to continue to execute that plan because that's how I scale and continue to grow.
So, all right. So you Defend the calendar. So what kind of your lead sources are you using? Are you, like you said, you did a little bit of LinkedIn, you do some other things. Like what kind of lead sources seem to be most effective for you?
So in the beginning of the entrepreneurial world, for Sandler, for example, I've been a Sandler guy for 10 years. This is my 11th. I started out having to do a lot of cold calls. And
Okay.
once you develop an anchor, you do cold calls and then you do LinkedIn and then you do cold calls, LinkedIn, and networking. And you start giving referrals out. And when you give referrals, you get referrals. So it begins to spiral together. They all spiral together when you are strategic about how you do that.
Awesome. So that leads us into the next question. So you've talked a little bit about some of your systems. It seems like you're very calendar protective. You've got a different way of doing things, and you have time blocking. How did you get to that point? You had to have a little bit of trial and error, I assume, over these 42 years. How did you develop and decide that those were your systems and that's what worked for you?
A great question. In the beginning, it was easy to, you have no business at all. So think of being out like you're surfing and you're paddling out in the middle of nowhere and there's no wave. So you're surfing, but then you find the wave and you stop paddling because, well, now you're surfing. But then the wave
Yeah.
crashes and then you have to just turn around and start all over again. So my best habit was to be militant in that ratio. 60% of my time, I call it the white space on my calendar. So between 9 and 5 every day, 60% of that time is actively hunting, and that's the system that I use. Is again, it's executing a behavior cookbook for prospecting, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's that also means that there's 40% of your time is going to be spent on delivering training, doing executive coaching, and executing the things that you have to fulfill once you drag that kill in. So then I spend my other 40% of the time, doing that. But being, again, the discipline for me, habits and systems are literally one and the same, because the only way that I could gain any traction and scale at all is if I'm systematically executing my daily habits.
So it seems all right. So you have some training going on at this point. How big is your team? So even in the very beginning, you had a team of 9, you said. So like, how big of a team are we looking? How where are you at these days?
Right now, I'm only at 4,
Oh,
and I
okay.
don't want to be any bigger than that. It might
All
sound
right.
ridiculous. I'm to the spot where everybody has their lane, and I don't need a massive team to grow. I refuse to work 100 hours a week. I did that. Our next topic
Yeah.
is burnout, and that's why I will. I'm perfectly happy at the revenue size and the scale that I am right now, and I'm managed to live a nice life by balancing it out appropriately.
So all right. So let's get into that. So you're doing burnout. You're avoiding burnout. So what roles do your teams play that you can avoid burnout and not work 100 hours a week? Which do you assign spots for each person? A quick break before we get to that next answer, because I know that answer is going to be brilliant, which is why I chose this moment to interrupt. If you love what you're seeing and you want to run your business off of warm marketing and referrals, visit our website, livelocalwarmmarketing.com. It's got valuable resources, office hours, memberships, the book, an array of resources to help you get rid of cold calls, cold leads, door knocking, and run a business you can be proud of through referrals and warm marketing. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, EA is virtual EA is an important one because that's how I manage the calendar and make sure that I'm focused. I need someone to keep an eye on my productivity, because it's easy to get in your groove and you get in a comfort zone. And
Yeah,
if you don't have a second pair of eyes on things, it's easy to squirrel away a lot of time and waste a lot of time. So
yeah,
EA is real important. I've got a behavioral and an organizational psychologist that work for me, and they help
really.
me in the consulting part of my business where I'm helping the clients create behavioral interview questions for their hiring
Oh,
processes. And then, of course, I've got my wife as my operations manager who keeps me from crashing and burning every second of my life. So without her, I would run into walls. I'd bounce into walls constantly. So that's the way that I burn out.
Okay. So you played the same. So the psychologist, this is the first I've ever heard of somebody having like psychologists on the team as consultants. How did that come about?
Hiring is very difficult for almost every employer. It's the human capital is the number one time suck, and it's a massively expensive endeavor to get wrong. And so I've teamed up with behavioral and organizational psychologists to help me use behavioral assessment tools to weed out the fakers and the phonies. Because what we know is in an interview, you're presenting the best version of yourself. No one's ever going to come in and say, I'm a serial killer. I'm going to show up late 70% of the time. I talk a big game, but I'm not going to deliver. Nobody says that in an interview. But using behavioral assessment tools and then unleashing my psychology team, I can help generate custom behavioral interview questions for the client for the second interview. And so they'll do the first one. They'll say, oh, this is a great candidate. Here, Tim, do the assessment. And I'll send them the assessment link. I get the results. We go through and we create these interview questions. And then in interview number 2, my client is stacked. They're ready to go. And so they weed out the fakers from the real legit candidates.
That is fascinating. I haven't heard that. And that's great advice. So of all the marketing, you've done this for a very, very long time, and you have probably an array of different marketing strategies that you've used over the years. Right now, currently, which one is your favorite and why?
I think right now the most effective thing I'm doing is I'm part of a networking organization called Success Champion Networking. And what makes it unique is that it's presidents, CEOs, and business owners only. And it's seat specific. So there's I don't know 400 of these business owners that are members of this group, and they're in sub chapters too. So I mean, if you think of like a local chamber of commerce, you wouldn't have 9 different accounting firms or 9 different sales trainers. You would have one. So it's sort of like a BNI, except for without any of the garbage that you get. And so like my favorite, the best connections that I'm making at this point are through SCN, Success Champion Networking. It's without question, it's the most effective networking I've ever done. And it's where it is interesting because in this AI driven world where you can go to Chat GPT and write anything you want, right?
Yeah.
The reality is that business owners understand that, and there's still that human connection piece that's incredibly important. And here you weed out, because it's business owners only, that's where I'm getting the most traction for my business. It's without question the best I've ever seen. So
that's awesome. So if you had quick advice for somebody who's looking for a networking group, what kind of things should they be looking for to make it more effective? Because there's so many of them out there.
Networking is a weird thing. I think a lot of people go in there and they're like, hey, I'm getting ready to pass out business cards.
Yeah.
And that's not it at all. But my networking strategy is very much, I want to get in there and I'm going to pour in to people first. This is very much the give to get. And what people really want is they want deeper connections. When you talk, when you see the polls of millennials, for example, their number one desire is for meaningful connection with an actual person, because they've spent a lot of their lives typing with their thumbs, and that's how they communicate. Gen Z, even to a more extreme point. And so this particular group is amazing because it's human to human. It's done, the weekly meetings are done via Zoom, but there's also happy hours and mixers and dinners and stuff like that. And when you break bread together with someone face to face, it is just different than if you're just typing and texting and whatever. So the connections are more meaningful, and the relationships therefore are deeper.
That's right. That's two good, amazing things there. You got to give to get, and the meaningful connections have to happen more in face to face. It can't happen for the robots and chatbots. That's wonderful points. I can't agree more. The next one we're moving to. So again, with all the experience, there has been things that didn't work for you. Can you talk about one that you've just like, I'm not doing that ever again. That didn't work whatsoever.
Yeah, I've owned 6 businesses in my life. I just actually started a new venture, which makes it number 7. One of them actually failed miserably, and
Let's do it.
it's odd because failing at something on a massive scale is humbling in ways that you would never understand. Now, some people will not even get into the fight because they're afraid to fail in the first place. And what I'm saying is that failure is part of life. The all learning only happens through failure.
Yeah.
And all of the best, most important lessons that I have learned that I apply in my career today and I help other business owners with today are lessons that come from the failures, right? And that one failure. The biggest lesson of failure that, losing that I can think of is I spent so much time in that one business that failed trying to perfect the menu of services that I forgot to actually sell it. And I was busy. I had a lot of hysterical activity. I was working 80 hours a week, and it was fabulous because my calendar was like, oh, I'm going from 6 in the morning till 7 at night, every single night, 7 days a week. But in the meantime, I was bringing in no revenues. And so there was the lesson is you've got to stay focused on the prospecting side. You've got to keep dragging in the kill, because without the revenue, no matter how great your idea or app or product or service is, you're gone. You're done. And that was my biggest lesson.
You've been doing this for a very long time. Like I said, 42 years doesn't look like you've been doing it for 42 years, but 42 years. And obviously you've got some bumps and bruises. What would you say to somebody young also getting started up about building confidence? I think you've hit on it a little bit with the last answer, but again, what kind of conversation would you have with them?
Young entrepreneurs, we so often shrink away from the idea of failing, and we take it as a hit to our identity, which I define as who we are. And I can't stress enough for a young entrepreneur, all learning only happens through failure. You almost never get it right. And even if you get it right on that first try, you can't duplicate it because you never fell down. You never stumbled. You never skinned your knee. And so maybe the most transformational book, and I've read 2,400 books in my lifetime, and maybe the most foundationally important one was Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell. And he's the one who codified that in my skull, that you want to fail forward, fail fast, learn from it, and then move on. Like, I think the visual that I have in my head is when you're driving down the road in your car, you've got about 32 square feet of glass in front of you to see the world in front of you, but you also have about 32 square inches of rear view mirror to glance behind. And if you spend all of your time looking in that rear view mirror, you're going to not only miss the world in front of you, but you're going to crash. And so you've got to be more, we have to exhibit resilience in business. You're going to fail, you're going to stumble, but that's where all the lessons come from. And there's my sermon on failing.
Yeah, that's nuts. And I assume you seem like the type, once you make those failures, it's not just a, hey, I failed. It's a, I failed. Let's analyze why, and let's figure this out, and let's move on. You seem to be the epitome of like grit, just grit, like just doing the things and then thinking about it, analyzing it. What can I do better? What can I improve? But just doing the things and getting out there and getting your hands dirty and finding a way. It seems just like grit. I think Tim Barry is based on this conversation, is a gritty guy.
I appreciate that. It's not always perfect because there's times when
No.
you're down, and this is why I think it's important to have a coach. I've got a coach, right? I'm the coach for CEOs, and I have a coach because, well, I'm still a human and a business owner. But that's why I think having a good professional coach is a good business coach is important. It helps keep you focused on the things that actually matter, and it helps you process things by getting feedback from someone that you trust in a meaningful way, and that's invaluable to keep, especially with the young for sure. But even us old crusty guys like me, I still have a coach, and I talk to my coach. Twice a month I talk to my coach. Unbelievably valuable.
That is awesome. I think we can sit and pull the experience out of you for another half an hour, 45 minutes, but we have to wrap this one up. So let's end on you talking about your business, what you do specifically, and then how people can get a hold of you.
Sure. I own a company called Sandler Training of Fort Worth, and I basically, in a nutshell, I train salespeople the art form and the science of sales. And there's a real important distinction between the two, but they're very much married together. I also do leadership training and executive coaching, but the soundbite would be this: I help salespeople not suck. And we know that salespeople often get a nasty reputation for being manipulative. And I teach people in a Socratic methodology how to ask good questions, build trust, gain equal business stature, and then customize solutions for the client or not, right? Because we know, contrary to conventional wisdom, that all prospects are good prospects. We know that that's actually not true.
Not true.
And so we embrace that in a systematic way. It's an art form, and that's what I teach. So in order to get a hold of me, I'm on LinkedIn. I had my LinkedIn stolen about 2 months ago, so I have a brand new LinkedIn profile. So if you see, oh my goodness, this guy hardly has any connections, it's because I literally fought with LinkedIn for 2 months to get my former self reopened. But you can find me at Tim Barry Sales Coach, or you can email me at tim.barry@sandler.com, SANDLER.com.
Cool. And your website?
It's go.sandler, SANDLER.com/TJ Barry, BARRY.
Okay. Perfect. All right, cool. So if you want to get into the experience and knowledge of Tim, make sure you check him out. Go to LinkedIn, follow his second profile, and then make sure you tap into some of this knowledge. He's been at it for 43 years. There's so much to learn and so much to get out of him. So, Tim, we appreciate your time here today, and we look forward to getting more people your way to also not suck.
Thanks so much, Billy. I really appreciate you having me on the show. It's a fabulous show, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate you deeply.
Awesome. Have a great one.